Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 27th of October, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar index. Just starting to just roll over a little bit here. So we've seen a lot of dollar strength in the last few weeks. Just seeing the short term a little bit of a sell-off, but no really alarming targets here on the charts. So still upside targets. So dollar still very strong long term, medium term, just short term showing a little bit of sideways movement. If we look at the euro, that's reflected the other way around, of course, where we're bearish on the euro in the long and the medium term. Downside targets here. This downside target here, the short-term one, down to 101, so parity basically, has been activated. We're getting a little bit of a relief rally off the back of that. If you want to look at the 1-minute chart on the euro, you can just go and have a quick look at that. This is where you would get a heads up on the very short term. So this is the 1-minute chart here. And we can see that we do still have a lot of downside targets. Vary the box size, go to smaller charts still, and we see here that we have got a few upside targets. This is a very short-term chart. So if we take a look at Japanese yen, recovering here strongly. So this is dollar strength showing through. Yen has been strong, hence buying the dollar's buying less yen, or if you like. So here we're seeing now dollar buying more yen, so getting stronger, and it's stronger on the short term. So dollar strength really showing through there. Sterling has been the big story, of course. Still just nudging this 122 mark again this morning. Downside target of 119.47 there, 2% further downside. That will only be taken off the chart if we get a move above 123.25. So at the moment, that downside is what we're looking to. If we take a look at the stock markets, S&P 500, new downside targets emerging here, just struggling back below this, back here at 21.39, just struggling to get above this 21.50 level and hold it. So we are just testing, this is the weekly here, we are just testing this support all the time, and this chart is worrying, a little bit worrying as we're rolling over, but we are starting to emerge again. The long term and medium term picture is still bullish. Bit of short-term bearishness creeping in. We look at the Nasdaq, more mixed picture here. We've got a downside target and an upside target, and we're above the clouds. So Nasdaq looking a little bit better. If we take a look at the Dow, much smaller number of constituents, of course, large caps, and this is looking still pretty good as well. If you look at the futures this morning in London, they're slightly below the cloud and a little bit of downside. So we are just seeing market pressure, and probably quite a lot of uncertainty still as we run up to the election in the US. FTSE turned bearish again below the cloud, just can't hold the 7,000 level back below there. We do have a target down to 6,700, that's 3% downside, but it's only one target. We'd like to see multiple targets on these charts. If we look at the FTSE 250, that's looking pretty bearish. Multiple targets here and below the cloud, so UK mid-cap's not looking so good this morning. And if we look at the DAX, just holding its bullishness here above the cloud, price still above. So DAX is looking better and wandering out on this weekly. This is starting to turn bullish long term. Overnight, looking at the Nikkei, still holding the short-term bullishness, a little bit of a sell-off, and not much happening in China. Hang Seng did fall quite significantly, down 1%, and quite a few downside targets here. So Chinese market just looking a little bit more worrying. And then the Australian market also falling quite heavily at the moment, showing through on this bearishness, just struggling to get through on this weekly resistance, really. If we look at Brent, we see here on Brent, bearish below the cloud, struggling at this $50 mark on Brent crude. So that's really key. If you want to see the short-term picture on Brent, go to the 1-minute chart. Just press the T key on your updater system, and here we've got the downside targets. And if we bury this box size, more downside targets here. So really quite key there as well. And so it is just suggesting we've got a bit more to fall. WTI off as well this morning. We're seeing that much the same picture. Nat gas hasn't changed very much from the previous day, but we are just seeing here this short-term bearishness. No sign of any move. When we get a move through this cloud, we might then get a recovery in the price. Looking at corn, Corn is just going quite strongly here, back up above the cloud on the 60-minute chart. Bearish still on these medium and long-term time frames, but interesting nonetheless. And wheat, much the same picture. We're just coming through here on the short-term chart, and still not quite bullish yet on these longer-term charts. Lots of downside targets. So in the long term, not looking great. Taking a quick look at gold. Gold is just bouncing off this cloud here. That's what we expect it to do. Remember, we watch for the price interacting with the cloud, and this lagging line in particular, finding support on the cloud. That's good news for the gold and upside targets here. So still a bit bearish in the medium term, but the long-term picture is looking still great. Silver, much the same picture as you'd expect. Silver tends to lead gold a little bit, and you're just looking at that chart there. It's quite interesting too. Taking a look at the US government bonds, the 10-year, starting to see some quite good upside potential here, back into this sort of 180 area, and we're seeing targets to 186, 187 in the short term, and then 213, 216 in the medium term. US interest rates going up, priced in on the bond market. Looking at some bellwethers, Apple, after those results, just has come back below the cloud. Give us a downside target of 7%. We need to fall back below 114 to activate that downside target in the short term. Google looking pretty strong on all fronts. Amazon coming back through the cloud here. Do have a downside target, but the picture is pretty strong in the long and medium term. And then Facebook, much the same. Bit of an interesting downside target here, 128 to play for. Not much on this upside chart, but lots on these other charts. Again, if we want to look at the 1-minute chart, Facebook, that would be the place where we get a little bit more of a heads up. So we press the T keys, and we see here that we do have an upside target of 136.50 and a downside target to 128. So at the moment, the trend is up. We probably favor that upside target. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.